All right, so we're on the next section out here, and we're with the Callaway. We're with an R&D section here, and I want to talk a little bit about the Fairway Woods today, right? Before we go there, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to those at home. So, who you are and what you do with Callaway.
Sure, yeah, my name's Chris Nunez. I'm a manager in R&D for Woods.
Okay.
I've been with Callaway 11 years.
Okay, so give me a little bit about background, what you do. I'm engineer. What's your background? Give me your engineering for them at home.
Yeah,
So.
mechanical engineer through school, and got hired at a Callaway right out of college.
Okay.
Been with them ever since. Started out doing a lot of engineering, specifically in terms of performance, but a lot of design. But basically, just how can I make the ball go as far and as straight as possible? So
mechanical engineer working on this, right? Yeah. We were talking earlier about a team. You got a team that you work with on this, am I right?
Oh yeah, big team.
What do you mean by big team? Because you see, they don't understand this. They think it's 1 or 2 people working on this. It's not, is it?
Yeah,
so.
I mean, between everyone that comes to pull this off on the R&D side, I mean, probably over 50 people.
There you go.
On just the woods.
Just
right?
on just the woods.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about, so this is the new Elyte Fairway Wood, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about just in general, talk about the different offerings they're going to have, then we'll go into the specifics.
Sure.
Okay.
So you're going to have 5 main offerings. It's going to be the standard model, which will be your core model. That'll fit the majority of players. Slightly shallow face, so it's very, very easy to launch. Big, forgiving, but very low spin. Very long, forgiving. It's got it all.
Right.
You got the X model, which is our biggest, most forgiving, easy to launch model.
Right.
Next will be your Max Fast, which is the lightest weight configuration.
Right.
So if you're struggling with head speed, or you want to get some of that speed back you might have had before, that'll be for you. Then it brings you to your triple diamond. Right. So this is more of your better player, deeper face, kind of built for the being hit off the deck and off a tee. Right. Very better player inspired model. Right. And then lastly is your Elyte Titanium. And this is really built like a driver, being made out of titanium versus other fairways being made out of steel. So this is your all-out performance. It's got a deeper face and a big body. So if you're looking to hit it as long and as straight as possible with your fairways, that's the one for you. Okay.
So let's talk about this again. Now let's just talk about Elyte in general. Okay. Because let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this club's made, because there's kind of some similar characteristics between them all, am I right? Yeah. And then some difference. Let's talk about similar between all. So all the different models was kind of similar between them.
Yeah. So there's 2 core technologies in our Fairway Woods this year. First, leading off is our tungsten speed wave. Right. So this is a high density tungsten bar that is attached both on the heel and toe. It's raised off of the sole. In typical fairway wood design, you're wanting to get the center of gravity as low and as forward as possible to help you get under the ball. Right. High launch, low spin. Right. But in doing so and putting all that weight low and forward, you tend to stiffen that front sole section, which you're trying to activate as you're hitting it off the deck. So the great part about the tungsten speedway, you get all of the benefits of the low forward CG, but a lot more sole flexure. So all those shots that you're hitting low on the face, you're getting a lot more speed, higher launch, and lower spin.
Gotcha. And so that's similar to that. That's number one.
That's number one technology. Number 2 technology is the step sole. So that's kind of the feature you're seeing here in the back, where the entire back section of the head is raised off of the ground. And what this does is it gets you similar to an iron. If you have a narrower blade length, how it can cut through the turf a little bit more. It's the same exact concept. And what we've seen is that through on the same exact design, if you have the step sole, if you don't, with the step sole, it raises your impact location or makes it more centered. And obviously a center shot is going to be your best shot. No matter what we do in the design to try to make the off center shots good, center shot's always going to be your best shot. So what this does is helps you hit center more often. Okay, gotcha, because the step's on the back. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the different lines you said. So let's kind of go through the different lines. You talked about just the standard Elyte, right? And talk about that again and who that's for and so on. The standard Elyte on the driver. I'm looking at different ones here. Just talk about what that is. So the standard. Yeah, the standard's really up the gut model. This is going to be the model for it's extremely forgiving, extremely high launch, extremely low spin. It's got the shallow face. It's a medium-sized body, not quite as big as the X. But yeah, really, this is a fairway wood. If you had to go into a fitting blind and you had to pick one off and walk out with it right away. Standard model. That's what I'd say you go with. Okay, and then you got the X model, right? The X model, now talk about the X again. The X model is a little bit bigger in footprint, so even more forgiving than the standard. A little bit easier to launch as well. And just if you're a player who's looking for the maximum amount of forgiveness. Is there any more draw bias in the X model than there is? Yeah, exactly, yes. Also a little bit more draw bias, so easier to turn over. So more draw bias in the X model. Then you had the HL model, right? The Max Fast. I'm sorry, Max Fast. So yeah, this is your lightweight configuration. So lightweight head, lightweight shaft, So, as soon as you pick it up, you're like, oh, this feels easy to swing.
Right, because
and yeah, if you're someone who's looking for a little bit more speed, if you struggle with speed, that's a great model for you. It's also very easy to launch.
Okay, and then you have your triple diamond.
Triple diamond. This is going to be your deepest face. It's kind of built for off the deck, but also off the tee. So if you're a player who uses fairway wood off the tee a little bit more, having that deeper face might be more desirable for you. The lowest spinning model of the bunch, so the most penetrating ball flight. And it's got a glossy black crown, so more of a traditional look from a dress versus some of the other models.
Okay.
And
then your titanium.
The titanium. So this is titanium construction, lower density material. That means you have more discretionary mass. In fact, on the tungsten speed wave on the titanium model is over 70 grams, whereas some of the other models it's in the 30s. So double the amount of weight in that tungsten speed wave. And then in addition, just the titanium over steel, you get more flexure out of titanium than you would steel. So it's honestly built like a driver. It's the same exact manufacturing process as a driver, but in a fairway wood.
So now tell me about the different offerings for them. So like 3, 5, 7, 9, what's in those different ones? Do you know what's available in those?
I don't know the exact one for each model, but I know on the standard, you have 3 HL, 5, 7, 9. And I think on the X it goes up to 13. Triple diamond, I think you have up to the 7. And then I'm not so certain about Max Fast and titanium.
Now, last thing on this, because we always ask the same question on this with these woods. We always talk about them being better than last year's, the last couple of years. Because we always say it's got to be better. If it's not, because even the public can go test it now. They can throw their own TrackMan out there. They can throw their own SC4 out there. So, and we always tell the public, is it better? We always tell them, you guys will say it's better. But proof's got to be in the pudding. So tell them why this is better. Tell them this, why. If I said right now, why is this better than previous models, which were good, or really good? Why is this better?
I mean, it's mainly a speed thing. So we got Adam Hadwin over here. He's a player who is custom fit like no one else. Pro Tour player. And literally just right now I got word that he's seeing 2 miles an hour of ball speed gain, and it's not like his fairway wood before was poorly fit. So for him to have a fairway wood that he's been hitting all year long, come right out the gate and gain 2 miles an hour over that, that's pretty special. Another piece of feedback recently is Akshay Bhatia, one of our tour players, specifically in regards to the step sole. He had been using a competitor fairway wood because he was struggling with impact location, not hitting the center of the face. Very first week, Elyte is out on tour, puts it in the bag. So I think kind of having these players who performance is of the utmost to them. They have the most access to data for them to make that switch and for them to get the speed and the improvement in impact location. Being elite players that they are, I think as an amateur goes and uses some of these, with all the extra forgiveness that's built in, you're going to be seeing that too. And also, the other thing, the big thing on this is that you guys use the real world or the real players' data on this. So with the AI technology, and that's a big deal. So it's not just using those great players. I mean, because we're talking to the public out there when they're saying, "Oh, that's Adam Hadwin." One of these guys who are just practice all day and play all day, and they're amazing players. I mean, they're amazing. But this is real world data you use for this, and they have technology. Am I right? Sure. Yeah. And to be honest, I feel like from our standpoint, it's easier to get gains with more regular players than the tour players. The tour players are so dialed in. In terms of the face optimization, real player swings, swings from several thousand players all combined, hundreds of thousands of swings are feeding into how we simulate these designs. And so what we're able to see through simulating for a real player swing is how can we optimize the design for that? If we're not taking in all of this data and not simulating to what the player is going to be doing in the end, we're simulating to something that's unreal. That's just not tailored to the real player. And what we've seen through that is just the next level of performance.
And that's the big thing, because you guys have done that for the last couple of years, in particular this year. You've taken real world data, real world players, and made these and optimized these for them. That's
building up the database. Every 100%. Year we get more and more swings, and that model just gets more and more accurate to what's happening out in the real world.
So if you're going to tell them why they would want to go with the Elyte fairway woods, what would you tell them? They said this, so they're looking at different fairway woods out there. They're looking at this versus last year. What would you say?
And I think this goes back to what Elyte means to us.
Right.
And when we started off this project, we said we don't want to have any trade-offs in design.
Right.
That's something you'll hear from engineers often is, okay, to do this, I need to give up that.
Right.
To get this, I got to do that. But really approaching this from we're not going to accept that we need to take trade-offs.
Right.
And really delivering on all fronts: speed, low spin, forgiveness across all of these different models.
Right.
So as long as you're out there getting fit, getting into the right model, you're going to see those benefits.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.